comfort with her because she was too worldly. So this is our Prioress. And now next character that we come across in the prologue is Monk. I have taken down some important points to discuss, and so I am discussing these characters broadly and in detail, I may say, so that you can make a note of them while discussing their character sketches separately. The monk is also satirically portrayed. He contemptuously ignores the vows he has taken to uphold the rules of monastic discipline laid by Saint Maurice and Saint Benedict. His greatest pleasure is in hunting the hare, which was thought to be wicked, especially for the clergyman. Now this one is an individual characteristic. Like, what does he enjoy? He enjoys hunting the hare. This was something wicked, okay, very unkind, especially for a clergyman. He neither labors with his hands nor pores over a book in the cloister. The monk doesn't fast or deny himself costly garments. Instead, he loves a fat swan, the best of any rose. He wears the finest grey fur in the land, an elaborate gold pin in the shape of a love knot, and costly supple boots. So again, we find that monk is very worldly. Okay, he is not very religious. He loves his cloister. And Chaucer reminds us that a monk outside the cloister is like a fish out of water. He owns greyhounds, which are swift as birds, and in his stable are many valuable horses. Thus, Chaucer's monk is a lively representative of his class. On the other hand, however, Chaucer gives the portrait added vitality and strength by a few individual touches. On the one hand, Chaucer tells us that this monk is typical of his class because he represents the characteristics which a clergyman ought to possess. So he is a type, but he is also individualized by Chaucer. The monk, for instance, has a large prominent eyes and glistening ruddy face. He is bald and stout, and his pomposity and implied resentment against the world are quite evident. Means he is not very soft spoken. He is very rude, and this resentment against the world are quite evident. Okay. Now we move on to the next character, Friar. The friar, to begin with, is a representative of his class and very much himself as well. When we say very much himself as well, very much himself, that means he is also individualized like the other characters, as we noticed, the prioress, for example, or the monk, for example. So he is also individualized. He is very much himself. He is a limiter. Who is a limiter? Limiter is a person who has secured the begging rights in a specified area. That means he has a territory of his own and he has secured the begging right there in that specified area, in his territory. He knows how to induce all the women in that area to give him money or food in response to dalliance. Now dalliance is a new word, I suppose, for you. This is spelled as D-A-L-L-I-A-N-C-E. Dalliance. Dalliance means flirtation, or say pleasant gossip for that matter. Obviously, he has a way with him. His English is sweet upon his tongue as he has affected a lisp. This is again a very individual characteristic and a very sweet characteristic. This makes him unique. What does he do? His tongue is affected with a lisp. Okay. He knows all the latest songs with which he entertains the fair ladies while he accompanies himself upon a harp. So this again is a very individual characteristic. So, you know, like when we notice their individual characteristics, I mean their idiosyncrasies, the way they behave, their gestures, their manners, their deportment, we really find them very fascinating, and that is why Chaucer has made his characters very memorable and remarkable. Means they simply become unforgettable for you. You are going to remember these characters for ages together. I'm telling you. He rewards the ladies with handsome presents of ornamental knives and pins, and his initial blessing of each home he visits is pleasantly satisfying. When he visits richer or more important people, his manner changes. He is now courteous and humble. He is only too ready to hear confessions and to sell ablution for money, which is of course his greatest sin. He has other faults too. He will have nothing to do with lepers or with the poor. You know, we ought to be very, say, kind with the lepers, for example, or with the poor, but he is not. He is very callous, very unkind to them. He treats only the rich in a nice and courteous manner. He will deal only with those who can be a source of profit to him in some way. The wealthy, for example, the sellers of food and the barmaids in taverns, etc. They are important to him because they are a source of profit to him, and that is why they are treated with
courteousness,
with courtesy. Very nice. Okay, means he is very kind to them. He is very respectful to them. He meddles also in civil affairs. For on love days, he acts as an arbitrator to settle disputes and makes money by this means too. He is courteous and humble in rendering service whenever there is a possibility of making any money. That means he is a thorough mercenary. A mercenary is a person, you know, who is say very particular about money, making more and more money. So money is very important to him. There is no man anywhere so virtuous, says Chaucer ironically. This thing I like about Chaucer. You know, Chaucer would be criticizing a character, and later on he would say, you won't find any man like the monk, so virtuous, so nice, so courteous, so modest. Okay, this is tongue in cheek. This is the speciality of Chaucer. Okay, this is a kind of genial sarcasm. He is sarcastic. Okay, he is criticizing, but the criticism is very mild,